In the planning phase, now we have seen the dates part, time scheduling. Now, after that, in the planning phase, the next one will consider the capacities, life cycle of internal activity. The planning of internal activities has a considerable influence on other objects and aspects in the project system and in capacity planning. The extent of this influence is indicated by the width of the lines in the slide. We can use the project planning board to carry out all steps involved in the processing of internal activities. We can also call up workforce planning and capacity leveling directly from the planning board. So we can see the life cycle of internal activities and capacity requirements with the planned dates and planned costs, workforce planning, capacity evaluation, capacity leveling, confirmation, capacity load reduction, actual dates, actual costs. So in the planning board, we can see over here, we have created the activities and we are generating the capacity requirements, evaluating the capacity requirements, releasing the activity and confirm the activity. Everything is possible in the project planning board. Now we'll start with the available capacity and capacity requirements. Internally processed activities and capacity requirements. The main settings for capacity requirements for internal activities will be control key to set whether an activity is relevant at all for determining capacity requirements or not. The value in the work field generally determines the size of the planned capacity requirements. The distribution key field determines how the capacity requirements are to be distributed over the duration of the activity. If this field is blank, the distribution key is determined from the work center. If the work center field is also blank, the work is distributed evenly to the latest dates. There are two checkpoints. That means the capacity requirements as well and the work center. Internally processed activities and capacity requirements has a setting for capacity requirements in work center as well as in the activity type also. The system can only determine capacity requirements if you have entered a work center. The requirements are generated at this work center and the work center supplies the available capacity. The activity type is determined from the work center and its assignment to a work center, a cost center. This is essential for the calculation of the cost for an activity. So here we can see in the activity, we are supposed to enter the work center with the plant and the activity type and the work and the control key and distribution key also we have to enter. Now we'll see details of work center and capacities. On the capacities tab page, we can specify the individual capacity categories of a work center. Each capacity category has its own available capacity. The formula for calculating the internal processing requirement defines how capacity requirements are to be determined from the activity details. Usually only the work field is used from the activity. The distribution key of the work center is only used by the system if no distribution key is specified in the activity. In the header of the capacity category, we define the standard available capacity for the capacity category. This standard available capacity can be refined using additional intervals. The relevant to finite scheduling switch allows to determine whether the capacity category is to considered in an available check. We can perform this availability check from the network or during capacity leveling. The overload specifies the percentage of capacity requirements that the available capacity may exceed without the availability check affecting activity scheduling. So here in the capacities of work center, we are mentioning the formula as well as distribution key, and which is in turn in the capacities details also we are entering for the finite scheduling and several operations, and overloading also we are considering. The capacity data in the work center and the available capacity determine the available output of labor and machines within a certain time period. Available capacity specifies the performance of a capacity category in a work center. The formulas in the work center determine how capacity requirements are calculated. Scheduling determines the capacity requirements using the scheduled dates for the service to be performed. The system determines the capacity requirements using the formula in the work center and the work from the network activity. Capacity requirement can also be determined for externally processed activities. To do so, we must set the scheduling and capacity requirements indicator in the control key. Capacity requirements are determined in the same way as internally processed activities. So the capacity requirements equals to work, that is based on distribution key, and distribution key is function plus strategy. So 25% of duration, 15% of work. So this is the function we use: continuous or a discrete, earliest or a latest. These requirements will be monitored. Now we'll see capacity analysis. We can use capacity evaluation to analyze the capacity loads in our company. We can perform various evaluations here. The standard overview provides you with an overview of the load situation at selected work centers. It compares the capacity requirements and the available capacity of the selected work centers with the capacity already filled by the work centers for each period. We can use the capacity detail list to display details of the orders and networks that create capacity requirements at the work centers. We can use the variable overview to evaluate and display any data from capacity planning. We can display the different evaluations in tabular and graphical form using the SAP Business Graphics. We can display our process work centers and capacities from all evaluation list. We can also process orders and confirmations and display stock requirements list from the detailed capacity list. So here we can see the evaluation of the capacity from the reports. For each and every week, we are able to see the requirements versus availability. The overall profile contains all settings required for enhanced evaluations and capacity leveling. We can set the overall profile and all sets of profiles within customizing for capacity planning. So this overall profile contains selection profile, which data we want to evaluate; control profile, leveling or evaluation of data; time profile, what is the period of time we want to evaluate; evaluation profile, which requirements do we want to display; period profile, which period we want to split; list profile, which fields need to displayed for the evaluation. So this entire information will be contained in the various profiles, which includes in overall profile. Now the next thing is capacity leveling. There are various capacity leveling methods for networks and activities. We can use the project planning board to display the capacity load for the work centers assigned to the internal activities. These work centers appear as bars on a time axis. Red sections on these bars indicate an overload within a specific time period. We can select a particular work center and display a capacity load curve that shows both the capacity requirements and the available capacity. We can use the project planning board to level capacities. For example, by changing the work center or rescheduling the activity to a period when capacity is available. For capacity leveling, we can use the capacity planning board either in graphical or tabular form. Each of them has at least two sections, one for the available capacity of the work center by period and the other for the capacity requirements of different orders or networks. Workflows planning is a user interface that we can use to distribute given work to persons allocated to the work center. There are different views for capacity planning and for workforce planning. The work center view selects all capacity requirements for the specified work center within a given time. So for the capacity leveling, we are using either planning board, workflows planning, capacity planning table, planning table in graphical mode or a tabular mode. So the capacity leveling, the project view selects all activities with work centers for a specified project. So the next thing is workforce planning. Using workforce planning, we can assign personnel to activities. Characteristics of workforce planning will be two different views, the work center view and the project view. Personnel can be assigned to activities quickly and easily. The data displayed will be availability of the person. It will be read from the HR master, total capacity load on person, activity data. We can assign the personnel who are assigned to the work center for the activity are personnel that belong to the project team assigned to a WBS element, or if the settings allow, the personnel that are available in HR. Evolution lets to display the work distribution for projects, work centers or personal resources. When calling up workforce planning in the project view, you select project definition, WBS elements or networks. The project view displays all activities that are assigned to the chosen networks or WBS elements. When calling up workforce planning in the work center view, you select work centers, plants or personal resources. Selecting via personal resources allows you to evaluate workforce planning on basis of organizational units. That means it is in the HR master organization units. We can assign persons to work centers at capacity category level or at work center level. The assignment is important for workforce planning. The cross application timesheet, which proposes a work list for entering activities for a person. To carry out and evaluate workforce planning, we need to use profiles for workforce planning. These must be entered on the initial screen and may be changed temporarily if required. The profiles for workforce planning are defined in the resource section of customizing for project systems. So these assignment of persons to work center. We are assigning the persons from HR organization unit by person wise or the position wise, or from the HR work center or capacity category also. Capacity category by individual capacities. So in the customizing part, customizing for the workforce planning, calendar days, and we can use the periods and assignments allowed or not, disaggregation and exceptions if any we need to use, and load the persons. These are the customized settings we use for the workforce planning. Now the capacity planning table. We can perform capacity leveling using the capacity planning table or a graphical capacity planning table. Set scheduling of activities on work center can occur in certain periods. To carry out and evaluate workforce planning, we need to use profiles for workforce planning. These must be entered on the initial screen and may be changed temporarily if required. The profiles for workforce planning are defined in the resource section of customizing for project systems. In the graphical capacity planning table, we can dispatch activities by dragging them with the mouse to the work center or capacity category for a certain period. We can call up various transactions from the graphical planning board, such as change or display the order or activity, change or display the work center or the capacity screen of the work center. The tabular capacity planning board contains the following types of display: work center or capacity with availability, load, dispatched, and pool for several periods. Multiple work centers or capacities with availability and load for several periods. The tabular capacity planning board can be called up in the work center view or in the individual capacity view or order view. It displays the available capacity and distributed capacity requirements. The output unit for the available capacity and capacity requirements is specified in the evaluation period. The tabular capacity planning table is divided up into a resource section and a requirement section. The resource section contains the name of the work center or capacity with the capacity category, scheduling period, dispatched capacity requirements, and requirements in the work list that have not yet been dispatched. We can display requirements in the requirement section, whether it is dispatched or not dispatched. The next thing is confirmations. After capacity planning, evaluation, and leveling, now finally comes confirmations. Confirmations document the processing status of activities, and using confirmations we can enter forecast for the remaining work and duration to define how the project will progress. Various business transactions are executed automatically using confirmations. For example, posting actual cost, actual dates, actual labor, and if applicable, changing the activity status. We can create confirmations in the following ways: individually for a network, activity element, or capacity split. As a collective confirmation for several network activities, using the structures information system by selecting activities and accessing individual or a collective confirmation, we can send a confirmation workflow from the information system to another user or to an organizational unit. Using the cross application timesheet CATs via the internet by creating an individual or collective confirmation or entering time data via the CATs. So these are various options for doing the confirmation: individual confirmation, collective confirmation, confirmation from information system or a workflow, or through internet, or through CATs, or through interfaces like OpenPS, mobile, and PDC confirmations. Now we'll see individual and collective confirmation. We can confirm one activity or activity element using an individual confirmation. We enter the actual start and finish date, forecast finish date, and forecast work on the detail screen. We can confirm various networks, activities, activity elements, and individual capacity at the same time with collective confirmation. This is basically by doing the confirmation of mass activities. We enter the actual start and finish date, forecast finish date, and forecast work in a tabular format. From the structure information system, we can perform the following actions for the activities that we have selected. Go directly to the individual confirmation transaction, go directly to the collective confirmation transaction, store a pool of confirmations. You can then select the pool later in the collective confirmation transaction or in the cross application timesheet. Now the customizing settings for confirmation parameter: default values, final confirmation, post material, proposed dates, proposed service, milestone dates, automatic checks, dates in future, work deviation, duration deviation, logs, actual cost log, goods movement log, workflow log, duration workflow log also. And parameters for scheduling is scheduling, deviations, status and field status groups. Send a pool of confirmations as a workflow to the others who can then go directly from their office inbox to collective information transaction. In the confirmation parameters, specify the following settings on the basis of the plant and network type. When confirming, a final confirmation is proposed automatically. Confirmations may be saved with confirmation dates in the future. Whether the error log for the cost determination is displayed, percentage of permitted work and duration variances. These settings we can do. During the confirmation, we can enter reasons for planned data variance. In customizing, you can define appropriate deviation causes and if required, link them with the user statuses also. We can make a field selection for the confirmation screens based on influencing fields such as network type, network profile or control key. Before starting the capacity requirements, capacity analysis, capacity leveling and confirmations, we'll see some customizing settings related with the capacities as well as confirmation. For this, we'll go to customizing guide. Here in the customizing guide, we have to go to project systems. In the project systems, we'll go to first of all we see the network related settings. Settings for network activities. In the control key, we need to check whether capacity requirements and scheduling has been selected for the control keys of internal processing is there or not. So we'll check for the PS01 control key. The PS01 control key. Here we are checking the detailed capacity requirement is selected and scheduling is also selected. So this is required for the internal processing of activities. Now we will see the resources part, or we can finish off the confirmation parameters also if required. So we'll go to project systems, dates, scheduling and date planning. The dates scheduling part, it is not there, so we'll go to resources first. In the resources, work center, Work center categories we already seen. Work center category for the process system is 0006 for the project management. So this is already maintained. The application for the networks, yes, this we have to ensure for maintaining the capacities. And for the usage, here only for networks is already selected, and specify person responsible, it is not required. Then we'll go to the capacity category. Capacity category 2 is already machines, and for labor it is already mentioned, and planners is already there. And maintain control parameters for availability check. Control parameters for availability check for the resources. So here we can see this availability check control parameters. Capacity availability, it is considered as a no check during the creation. During the creation is no check is there. And second one is release. Release also capacity check, capacity availability check is not being done. So whenever we require, we have to do manual. The next thing is profile for workforce planning. The availability check profile control parameter, there we can make it as a mandatory check for capacity availability, or whenever we required we can check manually also. Now we'll see the profile for workforce planning. If required, we'll create one profile for workforce planning. Here the details are: what is the date type we want to use, what is the start date and finish date, period unit, and work to distributed distribute work, display network, availability, display available capacity, display total load, disaggregation, assignment allowed, exceptions if any required, we have to select in this workforce planning. For workforce planning, we have to mandatorily integrate with the HR master, and the formulas for the parameters, we use the first of all we come from the definitions. In the definition we use for scheduling SAP 004, this is for the duration SAP 10, SAP underscore 10, and one we use for 8, this is SAP 07, this is for the requirements. So now we can see about these formulas. So SAP Sen is nothing but a work calculation. This is straightforward work for the capacities, and SAP 10 is the duration for the scheduling purpose. Dimension is time, we can make it as hour also. Dimension we have to select. Next is distribution. Define distribution functions. Distribution for the capacity leveling. Here dispatch start date are equal distribution are 10 equal portions. Normally this equal distribution will be the used, so that means 100% duration, 100% requirement. So again, distribution strategies, this we can see S01, S02, and requirements distribution. This is 20 equal distribution, earliest date by factory calendar. Strategy is S02 and function is S20. So here we can see S02 mentions earliest dates and continuous factory calendar. That means earliest or latest. Type is 1. Here distribution between earliest dates, that is 1, and in the type carry out distribution continuously through time, and the basis is distribution according to factory calendar. So this is for the strategy, and for the function is equal distribution. In the equal distribution, function definition is 100% and 100%. This is the distribution rule we are using for the work center. So this is about resources. Now we'll see the confirmation parameters. This is the confirmation parameters. In the confirmation parameters, we have assigned for PS01, PS02 also. Here we can see propose dates, milestone automatic, dates in future need check to be done, duration deviation check to be done. Duration deviation, if it is 200, then we will check. Similar for the PS02 also. So this is the confirmation parameters we have maintained. Now if required, we can define some causes for the variance, why it is delayed. While doing the confirmation, we can give these standard deviations, like here we have some already defined over here. Machine malfunction, operation error, defective material, manufacturing error, material error, production error. If required, we can assign to user statuses also. So for that purpose, we have to assign a user status profile and relevant user statuses. So we'll select here we have to use the user status profile, then you have to give the user status. So this is the confirmation parameter and causes for the variance. Now we'll see for the resources, standard menu, project system, then in the resources, process system and resources, capacity requirement planning. In the capacity requirement planning, it considers the evolution, leveling, available capacity, and this is the available capacity, and available capacity comes from here. So first of all, we'll see the settings in the work center. So that will be basic data, master data, and work center. So we'll see the existing work center what we have created. In the capacities tab. So here internal distribution key we have to use either 20 or 30. If it is equal distribution, we have to use 20 for the earliest dates and factory calendar. So this is the distribution key we are using. So in the capacities, if we enter the distribution key in the work center capacity, we need not to enter in the activities level. So here we have entered, and we have to mention the overload also, how much overload we can allow, and this is for the finite scheduling and for the several options. So similarly, we can make the changes for another work center. Here also we can keep the distribution key as SAP 020, and in the capacities we will make the overloading so this is the master data for the work center. Now available capacity, first of all we can see here, or we can see by the direct evolution method also. So here we'll go to the evolution. This is the load we are using. This will tell us about the work center capacity evolution. So here we will enter the work center and capacity planner group if required, and the plant. Now we'll see standard overview. So here the week wise it is telling requirement are 0, available capacity are zeros are there, and remaining capacity is not there. For USME, and these capacities will come only, this is variable capacity loading. Here we have to select the profile, workload basic load, work center basic load. This is the overall profile we are selecting. You can put the requirements from the network, the activities, Now here we are use the work center, and this is the work, and this is we are using earliest start date. So these are the weeks we are having. So we can see by planning board also. In the planning board we can see the activities, network and activities, the scheduling part. You can see the legend if required. This earliest, this is the color, basic, earlier date, critical, latest date, critical is mentioning over here. So this is the we are able to see now. So if you see, this is the entire network graph. So if required, this can be dragged to from one place to other place. So we can delay it also if required. This is graphical area, adapt time scale, planning board assistant, and this is time scale assistant, and this is the legend, options, field selection, and this is user settings. So these are the options are available in the Gantt chart. Now if you see in the network, graphical setting, you can see the work center view. This is the work center ME-1, it has been used, and this is the to schedule the network. Schedule has been carried out, and enter, save. Now it has been saved. Now we'll try to see the capacities. Now in the available capacity, we will see what is the existing capacity of this. This is the network we have seen. Now in the evolution part, we'll go to work center view. Is the same work center. So this is the capacity we are able to see by device, or if required we can change the time profile. This is for 3 months. Based upon 3 months, and now it should show in the month wise. So here this is one way to check the available capacity of this work center day wise and the remaining work center. Now this is order view. We can check by network also. Here this is general standard view. We can see from the long term. So this is by week wise the available capacity, 4th week, 5th week, 6th week. Now the capacity requirements we have to we have to schedule the network and network activities, and we have to dispatch for the then only this requirement will be raised. After WBS elements and networks release, we will see the requirements in the capacity evaluation and capacity